I've been writing resumes lately as a means of securing better opportunities and producing for myself a portfolio of experience to more easily communicate the value I can deliver to a potential client. Why is this important to you? As a high income professional, you ought to know by now whether you're working for a Fortune 100 company or you're working for other industry that layoffs are around the corner. Hi, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. If you want to secure greater opportunities in a good economy or protect your interests in a bad economy, having the ability to communicate your skills and value matters the most in the marketplace. Now, I know I mentioned resumes, but if resumes got people jobs, then everybody would have one. The typical individual who makes $150,000 or more can take 6 months to 2 years to find a new opportunity. Now, this is a problem if they're laid off, fired, or otherwise released from an organization and they have to find something to cover their income in the short term. Now, again, we talk about in our other newsletters the importance of building emergency funds, the importance of having strong communications and networks, and the importance of building that security that comes with wealth that produces passive income or multiple streams of income. So, I'm not going to talk about the income element of this, but I will talk about the building of relationships and the communications of your skills so that recruiters, hiring managers, and other individuals who can puts you in a new position, including potential customers, can understand what it is that you do and the value you deliver. Now, again, the economic side of this is detrimental. If you are in a position where you're working and then suddenly you're not working, your paycheck usually shuts down in a week or two. Even if you make $500,000 a year, the majority of people, because again, we talk about the behavior of individuals, the behavior of individuals is to spend up to their earning capacity. Now, I know there's some of you guys out there and gals that basically put aside a large percentage of your earnings because you know what might be popular in an economy today may not be popular later. Your job may be secure today, but once your work is done, you know that the majority of corporations will start cuts at the top. It's easier to cut $1 million in costs by dropping out 10 to 100 of the people who earn $100,000 a year. Uh, but again, if we have that communication set up, and I'll give you three key perspectives or three key approaches, you will be able to more quickly enter the marketplace or find new opportunities should the opportunity that you're in become stale. Number one, you will have a resume, but you're going to do this unique approach. And this was taught to me a long time ago. You're going to maintain a CV or a raw resume. It's kind of a functional resume that contains every job you've worked, including private work, including employment work, including volunteer work, and that it'll have a bullet point list of the skill sets you used in that. And you're going to use what's called the who method. You're going to describe what you did in like a sentence, and then how you did it in another sentence, and finally the outcome achieved in the last sentence. Now, what often happen is that'll become just one simple paragraph, and in many cases you can get that down to just 75 to 100 words. But what'll happen here in this raw resume is you're going to have all your experience, everything. Because the most important thing, which is number two, how you communicate your expertise, um, a recruiter doesn't care about all the experience you have. They only care about the relevant experience you have for a particular position. So, what you're going to be able to do in this raw resume with no formatting is simply go in there and extract where you worked, what were your job titles over a period of time, and then a list of the skill sets that you have in this Who format, which are like micro size case studies. You can take what's relevant to build out your new resume. Now, your new resume could be formatted differently, but it's tailored specifically for the job requisition at hand. So, if a recruiter contacts you, they have a position in your field, it provides enough income for the targets that you have. You want to be able to communicate with them quickly, and a custom resume is required. But how do you build that resume? See, just having a resume means nothing. Now, what's exciting is once you have a list of all your experiences, you can do number three, which is position yourself as an expert in the marketplace. So I'm going to describe one of my successes here, and I'm just going to read it out to you. I'm trying to use the who method, but I'm going to show you how you can take this small paragraph and number three, then position yourself as an expert. So it says partner with senior management to address sensitive business initiatives on a regulatory finding by analysis of milestone, name of remediation approach, implement a plan with relevant stakeholders, and measure performance against initial success goals. Now, again, reading it out loud gives me that's the first time I've ever read it out loud. It gives me the insight to know that that wasn't clear. It wasn't right off the top of the tongue. It wasn't really easy to follow. But again, essentially, I've partnered with senior management to address sensitive business issues. I've developed a plan. I've developed an approach, and then I made sure that the performance was done according to the objectives of the activity. If you take that paragraph, now I can write about how to partner with senior management. So there's little elements in here. I can write a small 200 word essay. Now it has to stand alone. The essay has to stand alone. And I've talked about this in another podcast. It's going to have a interest grabbing title. It's going to have a hook in the first paragraph. It's going to provide some insights, positioning me as an expert. And then at the end, it'll have a byline or a single sentence that lets people ask questions. So, how to partner with business management. Okay, I can also write about sensitive business initiatives. Now, I can't write about the specifics of them, but I can write about what is a consent order, what is a board level milestone, and I can put that in the context of my skill set, which is risk management. But I can do so without specifically calling out what I worked on because that is company confidential. And so what we're doing here with these little paragraphs is now we're going to go out into the marketplace and we're going to have 200 word essay or a little just tiny article. I think essay is a distraction. It really is a piece that is AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. You're going to show your followers that you understand a topic or you understand key concepts of the topic. You're going to cover one unique element of that topic, and then you're going to ask people, hey, if you got questions about this or anything else, just simply reply in the comments below. Now, when people reply in the comments or there's a conversation about that topic, now you have more context to turn that small topic of 200 words to an article of 400, 800, or even 1500 words. Now, one thing I did more readily in the past that I have not done lately, and I really believe this has been to a detriment to my career progression, is I haven't been writing for trade publications lately. So when I got involved in a private client, I actually am very exclusive with a private client. I made two fundamental mistakes. Number one is the mistake of not looking for additional and new opportunities all the time. A great mentor of mine shared with me the importance of always being involved in your industry, especially as a high income professional, always being involved in your industry, always building that network, always building those relationships, staying connected in the industry, and then ultimately positioning yourself as an expert. So he was in Toastmasters with me, and he was a supervisor of mine for a little bit, and we worked together at a company. And he would speak at trade shows and events on configuration management and quality assurance that and he was called for. Now, how do they know he could speak on those topics? Well, he was doing one page just information letters. He kind of had like a newsletter, and he would send a letter out to everybody. This was before social media. AOL was the prominent internet provider, and he would basically send a letter to all the people he met. You know, when you had big stacks of business cards on your desk, he'd send a letter to all those folks introducing a topic related to configuration management, and then many times those topics would then get expanded into a presentation. Now, when he goes up on stage and presents for 45 minutes or does a workshop for 90 minutes, all of that was recorded, and then he had the transcriptions done, and then he published a special report. Now, this was way back in the 1990s, 93, 94. This gentleman was a wizard, and he would get job offers every month, or nearly every month, and it gave him an idea how much he should be earning in the position he's in, but also where he can go if he's dissatisfied or not getting the results he wants in his current role. You will have greater job satisfaction. you will have better results. Now, again, I was working with a client and I was really excited about the position. It was a very large company, and I was able to do a lot of things inside that business that satisfied my desire for promotion. But ultimately, we were working in a sensitive area where I couldn't really write about what I was doing in trade publications. Um, but again, if you're writing in trade publications, if you're being featured in magazines and public and you're getting to speak at events, you're positioning yourself as an expert and you will attract to yourself more opportunities. And this raw resume becomes the fodder for the conversation. Because I know a lot of you folks out there, you have high income jobs, you're able to talk specifically in your career area, and you almost pigeonhole yourself in a path of development that dead ends inside the corporation. What we're sharing with you here, including sharing my mistakes, is that you've got to circulate to percolate. You got to get out there among the people who can hire you in order to be ready and available. And that resume is a secondary source. Now, another thing that I used to do that I stopped doing is I used to have a list of 250 recruiters. This list was recruiters who I have vetted and verified that they hired six-figure positions, they hired it in my knowledge area, in my skill set area, and that they would be beneficial to myself and peers. And I'll just real quick, because I know I've covered this in detail in other programs, but real quick, here's what I did. I would stay in front of the recruiters, and the recruiters knew that if they sent me a job requisition, if I wasn't a perfect match for it, then I would pass it along to someone in my network. Now, again, you see this on LinkedIn, but as an active model of self promotion or building a personal brand, I was not only able to help the recruiters who could eventually hire me, but I was also able to help my peers, some of which had social skills better than myself and often became managers. So you might notice that one of the challenges with the way I communicate is it's very direct and matter of fact. And when I'm not at the top of the food chain, it tends to upset people because the way I communicate attracts senior level executives, senior level stakeholders, and they very often come to me for advice. So that's perfect in the consulting world, but not so good in the business and workplace. And that's one of the challenges that you will face as you cultivate strategic relationships is that you'll be featured in a publication, a magazine, you'll speak at the local trade association, you'll speak at a luncheon, you'll speak inside the business. I've done a lot of that speaking inside the business when I work with a client, and then people will start to get jealous. Now, these people usually have low self-esteem. They have complex Napoleon complexes. They have problems that you're not going to be able to solve. But the fallout of that, if you don't have good social skills, and which I have challenges at time with social skills, I'd much rather be a fly on the wall than to be in the middle of the conversation. But if you have good social skills, that can propel you forward because you'll find advocates in leadership who will want to promote you. And if you don't have good social skills, very often these other things solve for that. So making sure that you're out there in the marketplace, positioning yourself as an expert, doing things that experts do, building artifacts that prove your expertise, and finally making sure that you have that giant CV, that raw document that is going to help you quickly respond with a resume when an opportunity comes up. Now, here's the thing about resumes. I said earlier, if resumes got people jobs, everybody would have one. What I'm not talking about is slinging resumes to recruiters. The recruiters don't want your resume. If they do, they're going to pump it into a system and you're going to get all kinds of low value calls. In fact, many recruiters will sell resumes in order to generate additional revenue. But you want to make sure that you're establishing quality relationships and that when they ask you for insights, you can either provide one of these short articles we were talking about, but you want to validate a position before you give the resume because the resume will be tailored to the people you're working with. Now, I've given resumes and a copy of my book. I've linked to recordings. So some recruiters were looking for a particular person, and they said, "Here's the problem that my client has." And I said, "Look, uh, give this link to your client. I'm not available, but give this link to your client. It's a link to my podcast, and it will explain the high level of what they need to know before they hire somebody for this position." Now, I made that podcast specifically for that recruiter in that situation, but what I was able to do with that is that when the recruiter and when the company went to the YouTube video or went to the podcast episode, I could actually track that. And not only being able to track that, I found that some of those senior level executives subscribed to my podcast and then later down the line had approached me for other opportunities. Now, again, like I said, I'm not working for 15, 20, 30 different clients. I don't have a big office with a bunch of people everywhere. From time to time, all I really have is a personal assistant and an accountant working for me. And so if I have 5 really good opportunities come up, I'm going to choose the one best for me at that time, and then the other ones I'll refer to my friends to build up that network. But ultimately, I can only really work for 1 or 2 clients at a time. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, when you follow the strategies I've shared here, you're going to start building out a bigger network of quality connections, not this follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter crap, but real quality connections. You're going to have the name, address, and phone number of these individuals. You're going to know about their children. You're going to know about their obligations and what they desire. You're going to know the recruiter who's really trying to close a six-figure deal because they get 25% commission after you stay there for 6 months or more. You're going to know the things that are necessary to to do less work and get more opportunities. Now, I don't know if it's a problem or not to have 3 or 4 different offers when you're already gainfully employed, but again, at least gives you a choice. So, what I've talked about here today is about giving yourself choice. Don't crutch on a resume because all the websites out there say you got to have a resume. And many career coaches will tell you the same thing too, that you need to have a certain type of resume because they're in the business of selling resume services. But much of that content is written for the masses. It's written for people who make an average or slightly above average income. When you want to be in the $150,000 US dollar or more, or whatever equivalent for your local economy, because I know I have a lot of subscribers in India and in the UK, and Australia as well. But you want to be earning 3 to 4 times the average family income. And in order to do that, a resume alone is not going to do it. Again, it's positioning in the marketplace. It's establishing networks of individuals who can both hire you or who could work for you. Because if you're moving towards a management position, wouldn't it be nice to know who of your peers is available for work? And finally, as you position yourself as an expert in the marketplace, you start creating the passive and residual income so that if you have a surprise in your workplace, such as a layoff no fault of your own, such as getting fired, even if it is your fault, or ultimately a change in the winds, you will be ready and secure because it is the network that is your wealth, not what you got in the bank, because that can change at any time. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, where we help high net worth individuals, individuals with above average, top 10% incomes, really get to the position where they have influence in their marketplace and where they can actively convert business relationships into profits. Now, again, those profits just aren't financially. It's having the choice when you have 3 to 4 job offers. It's having the choice of knowing that these jobs are transacting through the marketplace before anybody else does, and having the opportunity to save a lot of time and effort when it comes to applying to positions because those hiring managers are predisposed to choose you over anybody else. As you know, we have a podcast. You're listening to it right now, but we also have print newsletter. We also have email newsletter, articles at a membership site. Be sure to visit us at www.insidestrategicrelations.com for all of these resources and more. And I will see you in the next episode.